I always believed that when you marry someone, their family eventually becomes yours too. I was wrong. My husband's family never accepted him, and by extension, they never accepted me either. But what happened at my father-in-law's 60th birthday dinner crossed every line I thought existed. Is there anyone in your life that you wish you could get revenge on? Tell me in the comments who that person is and what they did. I'd really like to know your story. And please don't forget to like and subscribe so I can continue bringing you these stories. Your support helps me keep creating and sharing new content for you. My name is Leela Bennett, and this is the story of how my husband's own family humiliated him in public, and how they paid for it later. I got married to Ethan 3 years ago. He comes from a well-off family, but he chose a different path. While his father and older brother run a successful real estate business, Ethan works as a high school teacher. His family never respected his choice. They constantly made comments about how he wasted his potential and how he embarrassed the family name. His mother, Diane, was the worst. She never missed a chance to belittle him in front of others. His father, Richard, usually stayed quiet and supported her silently. His older brother, Brandon, treated Ethan like he was beneath him. On the night of my father-in-law's 60th birthday, the entire family gathered at an expensive restaurant. There were almost 20 people, close relatives, and a few business associates. Ethan and I arrived on time and took our seats at the long table. Everything was going fine until the waiter started arranging the seating according to Diane's instructions. She had personally arranged the seating chart. When Ethan tried to sit next to me, Diane stopped him. "No, Ethan," she said loudly enough for everyone to hear. "You'll sit over there with the kids. There's no space here for adults who don't contribute to the family name." The entire table went quiet. Ethan looked at her stunned. There were 2 tables, one big table for the adults and a smaller round table on the side where the younger kids were sitting. Diane had deliberately arranged for Ethan to sit with the children. I felt my blood boil. "Mom," I said, trying to stay calm, "Ethan is your son. He should sit with the family." Diane gave me a fake smile. "Leela, dear, this is how we do things. Ethan has always been more comfortable with the kids anyway. He doesn't understand adult conversations." Ethan didn't say anything. He just looked at me with tired eyes, then quietly walked over and sat at the kids' table. I could see the humiliation on his face. Some of the kids were even laughing and pointing at him. I was about to stand up and say something when the restaurant manager walked up to our table. "Excuse me," he said politely, "is everything all right here?" Before anyone could answer, another man stepped out from the back of the restaurant. He was wearing a black suit and had a calm but powerful presence. The moment he appeared, the restaurant staff straightened up. It was the owner of the restaurant. He walked straight toward our table, looked around, and then his eyes landed on Ethan, who was sitting at the kids' table. The owner's expression changed. He looked directly at my father-in-law and asked in a clear voice, "Richard, why is my son sitting at the kids' table?" The entire restaurant went dead silent. My father-in-law's face turned completely white. The entire restaurant fell into complete silence the moment the owner said those words. "Richard, why is my son sitting at the kids' table?" My father-in-law's face turned ghostly white. He opened his mouth, but no words came out. My mother-in-law, Diane, looked like she had seen a ghost. She gripped the edge of the table so tightly that her knuckles turned white. My brother-in-law, Brandon, who was usually loud and arrogant, suddenly became very quiet and looked down at his plate. Ethan, who was sitting at the kids' table, slowly stood up. He looked at the restaurant owner with a calm but unreadable expression. The owner walked towards Ethan and placed a hand on his shoulder. Then he looked back at my father-in-law and said in a cold voice, "I asked you a question, Richard. Why is my son sitting at the kids' table while the rest of you are enjoying the party?" My father-in-law finally found his voice, but it came out shaky. Victor, this is not the right time or place. We can talk about this later. Victor, I thought to myself. So the restaurant owner's name was Victor. Victor ignored my father-in-law and turned to look at the entire table. His eyes scanned everyone before finally landing on me. He gave me a small, respectful nod, then looked back at Richard. "You've spent years pretending this boy doesn't exist," Victor said, his voice loud enough for nearby tables to hear. "You made him sit at the kids' table like he's some kind of embarrassment. And for what? Because he didn't join your business? Because he chose to become a teacher instead?" Diane suddenly stood up, her face red with anger and panic. "Victor, please," she said in a low, desperate voice. "Not here, not in front of everyone." But Victor wasn't finished. He looked at Ethan and said, "Come here, son." Ethan walked over and stood beside him. Victor placed a hand on his shoulder and continued, "This is my son. Ethan is my biological son. Richard and Diane took him in when he was a baby because I wasn't in a position to raise him at the time. But that doesn't give them the right to treat him like he's less than their own children." The entire table was stunned. Some guests were openly staring, while others pretended to look away. My mother-in-law looked like she was about to faint. My father-in-law finally spoke, his voice low and angry. "Victor, we had an agreement. You were never supposed to interfere in his life. You gave up your rights years ago." Victor looked at him coldly. "I gave up my rights because I trusted you to treat him like your own son. Clearly, that was a mistake." He then turned to look at me again. "And you," he said, his voice softening slightly, "must be Leela. Ethan has told me a lot about you. I'm sorry you had to witness this tonight." I was still in shock. I looked at Ethan, who was standing quietly beside Victor. He didn't look surprised. He looked relieved, almost. Ethan looked at me and gave a small nod, as if to say, "I'll explain everything later." Victor then turned back to my father-in-law and said in a firm voice, "From today onwards, Ethan is no longer your responsibility. And if I ever hear that you or your wife humiliated him again, I won't stay quiet like before." He looked around at the guests one last time, then said, "Enjoy the rest of your evening." With that, he turned around and walked out of the restaurant, with Ethan following behind him. I stood there completely frozen. My mother-in-law slowly sat back down, her hands trembling. My father-in-law was staring at the table, unable to meet anyone's eyes. My brother-in-law looked like he wanted to disappear. And I finally understood why Ethan had always felt like an outsider in his own family. But what I didn't understand yet was, why did Victor choose this moment to reveal everything? And more importantly, what was he planning next? After Ethan left the restaurant with Victor, I stood there for a few seconds, completely numb. The entire hall was buzzing with whispers. Some guests were openly staring at my in-laws, while others pretended to look away. My mother-in-law, Diane, had her head down, and my father-in-law, Richard, looked like he had aged 10 years in those few minutes. I didn't stay long. I quietly picked up my purse and walked out of the restaurant. As I reached the parking area, I saw Ethan standing near Victor's car. He looked up when he saw me. "Lila," he said softly. I walked up to him. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then I asked the question that had been bothering me since the moment Victor revealed everything. "Why didn't you ever tell me?" Ethan looked down at the ground. "I wanted to," he said, "many times, but my parents made me promise that I would never tell anyone. They said it would ruin their reputation and that people would look at me differently. I was scared that you would also see me as someone unwanted." I felt a pang in my chest. "Ethan," I said gently, "you should have told me. I'm your wife. I had the right to know." He nodded slowly. "I know. I'm sorry." Just then, Victor walked over to us. He looked at me with a calm expression. "Miss Lila," he said, "I know this must be very shocking for you. I didn't plan to reveal everything like this tonight, but when I saw how they were treating Ethan again, I couldn't stay silent anymore." I looked at him. "Why now?" I asked. "Why after all these years?" Victor sighed. "Because I made a mistake when Ethan was born. I was young, selfish, and not ready to be a father. I gave him to Richard and Diane thinking they would give him a better life, but over the years, I realized they never truly accepted him. They only kept him because it looked good in front of society. When I heard about how they treat him even now, I decided I couldn't stay quiet any longer." He looked at Ethan with genuine emotion. "I may not have raised him, but he is still my son, and I won't let anyone humiliate him again." Ethan looked at Victor, and for the first time, I saw tears in his eyes. I turned to Ethan and asked, "What do you want to do now?" He looked at me and said, "I want to leave. I don't want to go back to that house tonight." I nodded. We both got into Victor's car and left. Over the next few weeks, Ethan slowly started distancing himself from his adoptive family. He stopped attending family functions and limited his contact with them. His parents tried to reach out a few times, but he kept his distance. Victor, on the other hand, made an effort to build a relationship with him. They started meeting regularly, and slowly, Ethan began to open up to him. As for me, I realized something very important during all of this. Family is not always about blood. Sometimes the people who are supposed to be your family are the ones who hurt you the most. And sometimes the person who was never there for you can turn out to be more supportive than those who were. Ethan and I grew closer after that night. He finally started opening up about how he had always felt like an outsider in his own home. I supported him without judgment, and he did the same for me. We decided that from now on, we would only keep people in our lives who respected us, whether they were blood relatives or not. Is there anyone in your life that you wish you could get revenge on? Tell me in the comments who that person is and what they did. I'd really like to know your story. And please don't forget to like and subscribe so I can continue bringing you these stories. Your support helps me keep creating and sharing new content for you.